I don't know. I can't really say I really discovered much about myself. I think really the biggest thing is that everything could have been prevented.
Hello everybody and welcome to True Crime Banter, the podcast aimed at bringing you your dose of murder relaxation. So just sit back and enjoy. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the True Crime Banter podcast. How's everybody doing tonight? Nice.
Awesome.
Lovely. That's
cool.
Great to hear, especially that you over there. That was...
Yeah, you in the back.
I'm shocked,
Yeah.
but hey, pleasantly
You're
surprised.
looking great, too. I love what you've done with your hair.
I don't know. He's pretty far back
I
there.
don't know. You're right.
Anyways, hi everyone. We don't have any banter for you guys today. I don't have any fun games. We're just going to go ahead and hop right into it. This is going to be the case of Westley Allan Dodd. Today, as I just said, we'll be covering the story of Westley Allan Dodd. And I want to start off by saying that this case does cover acts of sex and violence towards minors, so if that's something you prefer not to hear, feel free to skip out for today. And I say that because this is one of those cases that truly makes you wonder how society has somehow survived this long. Westley Allan Dodd is a man whose heinous crimes resulted in drastic changes in Washington state's law enforcement and legal procedures. But first, let's go back to the beginning.
Westley Dodd was born July 3rd, 1961, in Toppenish, Washington, less than a 3-hour drive from where we're sitting right now. From an early age, his life was marred by tragedy and abuse. His father was an alcoholic who frequently subjected the entire family to physical violence, and although Dodd never outwardly admitted that he was abused growing up, he did say that he doesn't remember a single time hearing his dad use the words, "I love you." And the same goes for him ever using those words as well. Wesley's father, Jim, describes his parenting as the following. "I treated small problems at home with anger instead of reason. I felt like I had no control of my life and was being overwhelmed by everyday problems."
This toxic environment that Dodd grew up in seemingly hit a climax in 1976. On July 3rd of that year, Wesley's mom, Carol, demanded that Jim leave due to an argument they were having. Wesley's dad responded to that demand by attempting to kill himself. This was Wesley's 15th birthday. A year later, the two were divorced. And this leads us right into Wesley's teenage years, the years that Wesley himself claims he committed his first set of crimes, ones that quickly escalated into the criminal he ended up being. As a young boy, Dodd's deviant side showed itself through torturing and killing small animals, something many people nowadays consider a clear warning sign of a violent future. And at 13 years old, Wesley began to expose himself to strangers, usually children younger than him. He said he got bored of that and started tricking kids into touching himself. He then got bored of that and started molesting them. And by the time he reached high school, Dodd claims that he was molesting children regularly, starting with his younger cousins, then to kids in the neighborhood, as well as ones he would even volunteer to babysit. The craziest thing is that here's how one of Wesley's teachers describes him from high school. even after knowing what Westley had done. The one thing about Westley is that he always told the truth. He was just very quiet, but he was extremely reliable, very responsible, and I knew I could rely on him. If I asked him to get something done, it was guaranteed to get done, and done right, and done well.
While in high school, Westley was actually caught exposing himself to a group of school kids and was charged with communicating with a minor for immoral purposes, but those charges were dropped. Shortly after, though, he was caught molesting his father's girlfriend's daughter. His father insisted that Westley get some counseling, and so Westley did, for a short 4 months. Not a year later, Westley was confronted by police after again exposing himself to 2 young girls in Richland, Washington. And even though the police knew that he had been involved in over 6 other cases, no disciplinary action was taken. In 1977, when he was just 16 years old, Dodd was finally arrested for the first time for sexually assaulting a child in Washougal. But because he was a minor, and this was considered a first-time offense, he received a very lenient sentence and was released on probation. A few years later, Dodd joined the Navy and was stationed at a submarine base still in the state of Washington. However, this did nothing to prevent Dodd from continuing his disgusting acts. In May of 1982, Dodd offered 4 boys $50 each to join him at a motel for a game of strip poker. He was arrested and taken to jail for this, admitting to police what his intentions were, and yet the charges were dropped. The Navy got word of this incident when Dodd was caught making a similar offer to boys that lived on the base. They took Dodd off of his submarine duty, and nothing more was done about it. That is until later that summer when Dodd once again got caught, this time trying to get a 9-year-old boy to pull down his pants. Dodd was then dishonorably discharged from the Navy, and warrant for his arrest was filed in Richland, where this incident took place. In December of that same year, Dodd was finally caught and convicted for his first felony. This time, it was luring a boy into a shed and forcing him to watch as he put a pen refill into his own genitalia. This conviction, a felony nonetheless, netted Dodd a 40-day sentence, one which he served less than half of.
So after serving less than 20 days for his first felony conviction, Westley Dodd then relocated to Lewiston, Idaho, a town right across the border from Washington State. During his time there, Westley was arrested and also confessed to, molesting a little boy there multiple times and on both sides of the border. The state of Idaho took him to court first, and Dodd was sentenced to 10 years of prison for his actions. However, his sentence was commuted to just 1 year of county jail instead, to which Dodd only served 4 months of. In Dodd's own words, "I served 4 months for a 10-year sentence. Everybody over there in Idaho is pointing the finger at each other." The Idaho judge who let Westley free so early explains that he is haunted by the Westley Dodd case. He can't understand how he let such a man go. After being let free, though, Westley Dodd was immediately arrested again and taken into custody for the same crime, this time on the Washington side of the border. However, the county prosecutor decided not to pursue Dodd's case, and once again, Dodd was free to go. In the words of the county prosecutor, he says he admits he probably shouldn't have done that. He doesn't know why, but the case just got lost in the shuffle.
This brings us to June of 1987. Dodd has moved once again, this time to Seattle, and he's being arrested again. This time it's for the first-degree attempted kidnapping, after trying to lure a young boy into an abandoned building. Upon being arrested, Dodd told the cops that his intentions at this point were to kidnap him, to rape him, and to kill him, so that the boy couldn't report him. Dodd sat in jail for 118 days, waiting for his day in court to face the consequences that he deserved. Dodd was found guilty for first-degree attempted kidnapping. However, that level of crime calls for less than a 118-day sentence, and thus the judge decided that Dodd had already served the time he owed. And once again, for seemingly the 100th time, Dodd was a free man. 2 years later, in August of 1989, Westley Allan Dodd moved one last time, this time to Vancouver, Washington, just across the border from Portland, Oregon. Dodd says that his intent for the move was to kidnap, rape, and murder as many children as he could.
On September 4th, 1989, 10-year-old Cole Neer and 11-year-old William Neer went missing while out on a bike ride together. Westley Dodd had lured the two boys to a secluded area near a park under the guise of letting them play with the ball that he had. The boys and their bikes were later found that night. Cole had been raped, and both of them stabbed to death. In Wesley's own words, "I raped Cole Neer, and then I killed him. Yes, I also murdered William Neer to conceal my identity." Less than 2 months later, Dodd struck again on October 29th, this time kidnapping 4-year-old Lee Iselli from a playground in Portland. Again, in Wesley's own words, "I did kidnap Lee Iselli from Portland, took him to my apartment in Vancouver, and raped him. And on the morning of October 30th, I murdered Lee Iselli." Just 2 weeks later, Dodd was on the hunt again. This time his target was a 6-year-old boy in Camas, Washington. However, as Dodd explains, this little boy knew what to do. The little boy screamed in terror as Dodd attempted to scoop him up and carry him out of a movie theater. Dodd was apprehended by nearby civilians, then arrested and charged with first-degree attempted kidnapping, this time along with first-degree attempted murder. After this arrest, Westley Allan Dodd admitted to the murders of the 3 boys prior, explaining that he had detailed notes and photos in a personal diary of his. Notes on not only what he had done to the already victims, but also notes as to what he was planning on doing to the next ones. Members of the jury during Dodd's trial explained that this diary records in chilling detail the events that took place in his apartment in both the afternoon and the evening after Dodd had kidnapped 4-year-old Lee Iselli. Dodd had also kept souvenirs from his crimes, more evidence that shows just how truly sick Westley was in the head. And Westley was aware of that too, as in one of his last interviews he explains, "I do not want to die, but I have been completely honest in saying that I must die, because I know I will kill again." Westley Allan Dodd was convicted for the murders of Cole Neer, William Neer, and Lee Iselli. He was sentenced to death by his choice of lethal injection or by hanging. Westley chose by hanging because that is how he had killed his final victim. On January 5th, 1992, Westley Allan Dodd was executed via hanging at 12:05 a.m. in Walla Walla, Washington, the first of its kind since 1965. So that is the case of Westley Allan Dodd. Briefly, I mean, he's done a lot, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously he's super fucked up, right? And
Yeah.
I think when you showed me this case yesterday, 2 days ago, whatever it was, I don't know, I still kind of feel the same way I do now, where I'm watching it and listening to it, and things about it. I don't know. And it's sad, but like this isn't the first time this has happened. And it's super sad. This is just, I don't know, confirming that just like there's just terrible people out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad things were changed because out of a bad situation.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like laws change and stuff, but it's just, I don't know.
Interestingly
It sucks
enough,
that had to happen first.
right. So that's what's so I watched a full like documentary from like 1992 before he was executed, where he was being interviewed about his crimes, how he was brought up, how he viewed life, kind of, and how, you know, he would do one thing for satisfaction. He began with exposing himself to people, but he realized that that wasn't enough, and so it was just kind of it, you know, gradually escalated to, oh, I'm gonna have to start killing these kids because that's the only way I can get my satisfaction out of it. A lot of, because he says in this interview, he's got hundreds of victims that he molested.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine. You know, these are people in his neighborhood, people who know him.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing is that people knowing what he's done now, or I guess at this time, still viewed him as like someone they would trust. Like the teacher that said, you know, he's a guy that I could rely on, said that the last time he saw Westley was just before he had kids, but even now he would almost consider letting Westley babysit.
Oh, yeah,
which
that's
makes,
fucking weird.
Yeah.
That's odd.
And it's almost kind of like a Ted Bundy-ish,
Yeah,
like, oh, he's, you know, a likable dude.
charming,
but
handsome,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
but he's not. Like,
Right.
and I guess what I'm bringing up with like the number of victims he had is like there's so many. And the one thing about him and his story is that it changed the way that at least the state of Washington approaches sexual predators.
Yeah.
Because clearly he ended up killing 3 kids.
Right.
Which is like, that could have been prevented. How many times were you know, brought in and then let go? And after he got caught, he was the one that basically said, listen, at my time of my arrest, when I was killing these, you know, 3 kids, I probably should have been in prison in like 4 different counties. But for some reason, they were either letting me go or, you know, slip through the cracks, as one of the prosecutors says. So
there's a few killers that I think have been interviewed that, well, I don't think that have that same mentality where they're very self-aware and they know that they don't have control, but also if you're that morally conscious to know that this is going to keep happening, this is just who you are, blah, 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 you never were morally conscious enough to seek help. Like, that's another thing.
Yeah, and that is... when
you don't know or you're unaware, you don't care about your actions. That's a little bit different to me.
Yeah.
Because then you're not going to seek out help, right? You're going to make whatever. It's just who I am. I don't give a shit.
Right. No. Yeah, exactly. And when I, when I wrote this case, I wanted to kind of focus on the number of times that he could have been stopped. But there was, in between these times, he did... I mean, you kind of covered it. He went to counseling for 4 months after molesting his father's girlfriend's daughter.
Yeah, but not on his own free will.
No,
right.
no.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that a lot of people, Dodd himself even says, I don't know if I subconsciously wanted to get caught.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I knew that it wasn't my fault that I kept getting away with it, that I probably should have been caught already. And so that's why, because a lot of people ask him, why did you just so nonchalantly try to steal a kid in a movie theater?
Yeah.
Like, and
no, I know. And I thought about that too, because all the other times there was like a ruse or, hey, I have a ball, come over here. And I was like, he just tried to walk out of a movie theater with a child. Yeah. And thank God that kid knew to scream.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of, you know, that's kind of what he talks about. He's like, I don't know if I wanted to be caught because I needed to be stopped. And like you said, you know, I don't want to die, but I think I
Or he just got cocky because he was fucking getting away with it. And he was like,
And
This will be
that is something that a lot of people think, that when he first got arrested and said, well, listen, it's the authorities' fault that I'm still out here doing this. He was kind of passing the buck.
Right.
But it did highlight the fact that there was a lot of holes back
it's
then.
also true, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I showed you this on this documentary. Maybe I'll link it somewhere if I can. But again, from 1992, there's interviews with sexual predators in the correctional center at the time that are very unremorseful about what they've done to children.
Yeah.
That are like scheduled to be released within a month of
Yeah,
those
well, they're
interviews.
mentally ill, so.
Yeah, and they don't care. And yet,
Well, yeah.
back then, the laws were like, well, you served your time. Like,
Yeah.
you're good to go.
Yep.
So, the weird part, I don't even want to say weird, because it's notorious for how many victims he has, but it's almost more popular for, or more known for how it changed the legal system
Yeah.
when it comes to the approach to sexual predators. So
Yeah.
if there's any positive we can take from this,
Yeah.
I guess it's that finally, at least the state of Washington recognized we got a fucking problem here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, they made some big changes to where people could then be convicted for possible crimes they might commit in the future, which I think has been updated since then. But they've said, listen, just because they're sexual predators doesn't mean they can't advance into these more murderous people.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. I've honestly never heard of this case
No,
until
me
I
either.
picked up on this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I definitely want to share this because it seems pretty significant for
Right.
someone who only had quote unquote 3 murder victims, but hundreds more.
Right.
You know, and who knows how many more if he never actually got caught. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. Well, I guess that's it.
Well, thank you
Yeah,
for being a part of the story process and doing all that hard work.
Oh, well, thank you,
Yeah.
listeners, for all joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to know what your guys' thoughts are on the fact of how many times someone can get caught for the exact same
I mean, I'm not
act.
trying to take away from this story, but it happens to priests and shit all the time. Like, it's happening right now. Like, this isn't anything we haven't heard of. People are getting moved around and covered up all the time, and just
that's something we discuss often, and it's just like, are we ever
I don't
gonna
know, dude.
address that? You
I
know,
don't fucking know. That's too much for me right now, man.
I agree. I mean, that may be for us forever, but
that was
hey,
a lot after that fucking story.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
a
need to get into
whole
priests right
other
now.
bag of
Bag of shit.
exactly, pieces of shits. Well, that's it. That's all we got for today's episode.
Oh, you know what, actually? Maybe if other people know of other cases like this where laws have been changed, I would like to know about that. Maybe we could cover more of those.
Yeah, I'll put that actually as our question on Spotify. Do you know of any other, I guess, criminals that caused a law to be changed, whether it's in your state or your city or the nation? Who knows? But yeah, until then, I guess that's it. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll talk to you in the next one.
Bye.
Adios.